What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by Matthew Moreno. Matt, some potentially worrisome news about Walker Buehler coming from the lips of Dave Roberts yesterday, reporting that Walker Buehler is unlikely, quote, to pitch in Cactus League games this spring. Is this something Dodger fans should be concerned about?
I don't want to say yes, but I think it's a little strange. And it's going to tie into, our interview with David Vassay that we did before players were reporting, and he threw out a late date for Walker Buehler. I think he
May.
was guessing May. I think he even said possibly June.
Yeah.
And I know that surprised you and I, because everything we had heard was like, yes, as much as he's going to be delayed to start the season, like it's probably only a few weeks, maybe a month. I think if Buehler doesn't pitch in any Cactus League games, that this adds more credence to, David Vassay thinking that maybe his return or debut, if you will, won't come until those summer months.
Yeah, to back up on and rewind the timeline, I should say, 2015, he's drafted, has his first Tommy John surgery. August of 2022 is when he had his second. So we're sitting here midway through February of 2024, almost a full year and a half since Walker Buehler had his second Tommy John surgery. And this is the place where we are at. Again, Robert's saying unlikely to pitch in spring training. It's worth pointing out, Buehler said that he might try to, quote, sneak into some Cactus League games near the end of spring. This from Jack Harris. Buehler adding, we've left ourselves a lot of leeway to build up however I need. This was the key part to me, though, Matt, as I was reading the quotes. The next steps for him, make sure he bounces back between bullpens and then building up stamina. This is the key quote. Quote, I need to get to a spot where I'm not hampering our team from an innings perspective to be on the roster and be in the rotation. The reason I say that's optimistic, that's positive to me, is because it sounds like what Buehler is saying is, could I be ready to pitch? Sure. But we have the luxury of waiting until I am fully ready, fully built up, so that I'm not going out there and pitching 3 innings, 4 innings at a time, but that I'm actually going to be a starting pitcher who can take down 4, 5, 6 innings potentially every time it goes out. So it feels to me like this isn't a necessity that he isn't pitching, but the Dodgers are taking the luxury approach with Buehler.
Yeah, that would certainly make some sense. I think that for me, the concern with that would be like, if he's not pitching in these games, like he's going to have to get into games at some point. Then those are probably going to be rehab starts then with a minor league affiliate, which isn't that big of a deal. But then it does, in my opinion, sort of invariably further delay when he'll get on the mound for the Dodgers. And as I fully agree, like much rather have Walker Buehler in October than, March, the final week of March, first week of April. Like I'm totally on board with that. My concern is if the timeline starts to slip a little bit too deep into the regular season, how much time is he then going to have to really, find his rhythm at the major league level, get into, where he's contributing for the Dodgers and potentially an option for them in the playoffs? Because as much as, maybe he could, yes, they have the luxury of have Walker Buehler make 10 rehab starts if they want. I mean, I know that there's MLB roster rules with how stuff like that would work, but that could be ironed out and figure out your way around that. Doing those, even if some of them are with Oklahoma City, then pitching it back in the majors is different. And Walker, I'm sure, will admit it, and a lot of pitchers have. So that would be my only real concern with, let's be careful with how much we're trying to, maybe delay the start because you're preserving him for the back end.
Yeah, look, as Dodgers fans, we rightfully have PTSD when we hear about a delayed timeline, because we've heard these types of stories before. And, somebody like Blake Trinan a year ago that was delayed, and then he never came back. We've heard that multiple times. I'm not quite ready to fear that fear when it comes to Buehler. I think about Bobby Miller from a year ago, and Bobby Miller wasn't coming off a Tommy John surgery, but what he was coming into was a season in which he was going to have a pretty significant innings limit. And so what did the Dodgers do? They delayed him throughout spring training. I don't believe he pitched at all in the spring. And then they slowly built him up at the beginning of the year, because it's a lot easier to ramp a guy up late in the season than it is to try and, like, midway through the year, like, hold on, we need to ramp this guy down, let him take a break so he doesn't eat up all these innings, that type of thing. So I think there's a way that you could spin this where the Dodgers are looking at Buehler and saying, hey, we think you've got 100 innings in your arm, or whatever the number is. And so we're just going to work backwards from, October 1st and say, when would we ideally want to get Walker Buehler reared up and ready to go so that he could pitch consistently throughout the playoffs without needing to take a break. again, this is the optimist in me projecting this because I've seen the Dodgers do it with Bobby Miller. Coming off second Tommy John in the case of Buehler, I understand all the skepticism, the people that are laughing as I say this and saying you're delusional, you're a fanboy, you're just wanting to believe this. I get all of the reasons why I could be wrong. When I read the quotes again, it just sounds like a guy who is managing his innings more so than a guy who's genuinely concerned about his health.
Yeah, I do think that if if forced to pick of those two options, I completely agree that it is just a matter of mapping out the best plan for him. And I've said it, the Dodgers said their focus, as much as you don't take the regular season for granted, is the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's, they want to win a World Series. And so you need Walker Buehler for that. And you would much rather have him making those starts, throwing those innings late in the season into October than starting, maybe the second series of the regular season type thing. Like, that doesn't make much sense. That being said, yes, I think the fact that it is Buehler's second Tommy John surgery, it complicates matters a little bit just because of the history and the overall track record of pitchers coming back from that isn't great. But I know you and I agree that if there's somebody to bet on, Walker Buehler is that person. So from that standpoint, like, yes, it is probably just the Dodgers erring on the side of caution. I just hope that it's, even if it's with the best intention of going about it this way, that it doesn't necessarily backfire from the standpoint of, like I said, do weeks start to quickly evaporate and then all of a sudden it's, oh man, I'm trying to find a rhythm here at the major league level and it's September and I have 1 month left. Yeah.
I mean, like he said, he's looking, how am I going to bounce back between bullpens and outings? That's the thing to monitor. When he pitches bullpens, keep an eye on your, the Dodger Blue 1958 on Twitter to see what are the reports, what are the quotes from Roberts, from Buehler after those, as far as how his body is responding, how his arm is responding, how his shoulder's responding, all of those things as a way to monitor this situation. And we cross our fingers that the optimist in me is correct in this case. That is Matthew Moreno. I'm Jeff Spiegel. Again, we appreciate you joining us here. Make sure you check out DodgerBlue.com for all the latest. Of course, subscribe, ring the notification bell here, and check out Dodger Blue 1958 on social media as well. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks. As always, go Dodgers.